What's up guys, Alex back with an unboxing, and today we're gonna be assembling the Goat Power Bike's motor Goat. So let's get this thing out of the box and get started. All right, now that we have everything out of the box and all the packaging taken apart, we have a few boxes here. So our first box here just has some accessories like the lights, the blinkers, and our mounts for the rearview mirrors, which are packaged separately. And then in this box, we have the battery, which we'll be taking out later. And then finally, we have our toolkit with all the tools that we will need to assemble the bike. First thing we'll do is we'll attach the handlebars. So we'll come into our toolkit, undo this little box, and we'll find our set of Allen keys. For this one, we will be using a number 6 Allen key, and we will undo the stem so that we can get our handlebars attached. All right, now that we got the stem cap taken off, we can set our handlebars on. And we just want to make sure that the handlebars are placed with all the cables in front, not twisted around with them behind. Sometimes I see that when working on people's bikes. Once you have all the bolts started, we can align the handlebars properly with the grooves. And then we can just start to tighten it down. Make sure we're tightening them down evenly. That way we don't damage any of the bolts or threads. Once it's a little bit tight, we can rotate our handlebars up to our preference and then tighten them down the rest of the way. And let's make sure we're tightening them down evenly and not just the back more than the front or the front more than the back. All right, next we will be installing the front fender. So we'll take that out of the packaging. And for that, we will need our number 5 and I believe our number 3 Allen key, along with our smaller set of wrenches. So let's get this all taken apart. All right, first we'll take our number 5 and our wrench. We will hold on to this nut back here with the wrench, and then we can loosen the number 5. Once you have that apart, make sure you have your washers on. Line it up with the front. Put that on. Put our washer on the back. And then our nut back on. Thread it on by hand first so we don't cross thread. And then we are ready to tighten. And then with the number 3, we will loosen these bolts on the side. Take them completely off. And then we can fasten the fender to the fork. And then we can do that on both sides. All right, now we have our fender on, and we can move on to the next thing, and let's assemble and install the light. For the light, we'll take it out of the packaging. All the hardware is already attached to the light. And it looks like it's a number, we'll need a number 5 again. So we'll take our number 5, loosen the bolts that come on it. We'll bring it over here. Make sure that the light is facing upright. We will put the cables behind the light. And then hold it there, line these up, get them started, line it up on both sides. And then once we have it started, we can tighten it down. And then once that's all tight, we can come over to these that are attached to the fork and make sure that these are nice and tight. We will need our small wrench again for that. Attach it to the nut, and then we can tighten it down. Great. Now that we have the light on, making sure we've attached the light to the front mount right here, because there's 2 mounts. These are for the turn signals, which we will install now. Our turn signals will be in the same box as the headlight, and they are specific to the side. We see that there's a little LED at the bottom. These need to be at the bottom facing down so that they can illuminate onto the road. So what we'll do is we'll just loosen these nuts, feed the cable through. Once you have it through, we can feed the nut back onto the cable. Get it all lined up, and then we can just tighten by hand first, and then repeat that process on the other side. So we'll loosen this, take it off, feed it through, put our nut back through the wire, and then get these cables out of the way. And now that we have these snugged up, we can tighten them down with our bigger wrench that we have provided in the toolkit. We'll just come over here and just tighten them down. All right, and now we have the blinkers and the light installed. So what we'll do is we will get all of our cables down here. So we have these 2 for the blinkers and this for the light, and they will plug in right here. So we'll just make sure we match them up properly. And we don't want to ruin any of the prongs, so make sure that the arrows line up. Plug them in, and then just plug these 2 in, and then we will test at the end if we have them plugged in right. No problem if they're not plugged in right, it's just the blinkers will be opposite. And if that's the case, we just switch these. We just switch the connectors. Awesome. Next thing we'll move on to for the cockpit of the bike are the rearview mirrors. So we'll take these out of the box. And all we will need for these are the clamps that come in our smaller box, and then the bolts that we need are in the box with the rearview mirrors. So now that we have everything out, we will need our number 6 wrench actually. I mean our number 6 Allen key and our smaller wrench set. And in the box we have our 2 bolts, our lock washers, which we can just slide these on. First, what we're going to do is we're going to attach the clamps to the bike, and that's what we will need our small wrench set for. So basically, just to undo the bolts that have these clamped together. All right, now that we have that all taken apart, we will just put it onto an open space on the handlebars. Get it started by hand. And then we can tighten it up just a little bit. Rotate it and slide it back here. And then just tighten it down the rest of the way. That'll make it easier. All right, and now we will just repeat that same process for the other side. Great. Now all we have to do is take the rearview mirrors themselves, remove this plastic piece. You can remove all this wrapping side. So we will put this on the left side when we're looking at the bike. Put this through. Get that started by hand, and then we can take our number 6, get it all tightened up. All right, now we'll do the same with the other one. And then once we have them on, we can adjust them after in case they're just in the way of any of our controls. So for that, we will adjust our clamp. And then that's just a preference thing, however you like it. For this one, we will notice that it's kind of in the way of our on button, so we will just loosen up our clamp again. Just a little bit, kind of move it forward like that. And then the mirrors move in all sorts of directions, so you can get it kind of dialed into however you like it. But now that that's on the way, we can tighten it back up again. Awesome. Now we have our rearview mirrors installed. All right, now that we have the cockpit all dialed in, we have the handlebars on, our lights, our turn signals, and our mirrors, we can get started with the pedals and pegs. So all the hardware is already attached to the peg. So what we'll do is we will take the hardware and unscrew it. And just remember the pegs flip upwards onto the bike, not down. So this one will go on this side. We will feed it right through here. And then we can just tighten it up by hand like this. All right, there we go. Now we will just do the same thing on the other side. All right, now we got the pegs installed. They flip up and down. Perfect. All right, next we will install the pedals. And the pedals are specific to the sides. They have two different thread patterns, or I guess not patterns, but they thread opposite directions. You come over to the crank and we just try to do it by hand. So this one will go counterclockwise and these threads are not going counterclockwise. So we'll try this one. And then you don't want to force it, but this one, it catches threads and then we can just tighten it down. A big mistake I see is when new buyers will get the bike, they will cross thread the crank by trying to force the pedals on. And there's no need to do that. The pedal should just thread right on just like any normal screw. We will do the same thing for the other side. For this, I'm using the number 15 or 15 mil wrench. We just want to make it snug, not too tight. All right, last but not least, we will be assembling the wheel. And for that, we just need our through axle that came in our other box and the wheel. So the wheel will go this way because this is where the rotor is and it has to line up with the caliper. So what we'll do first is, if you want to come over and take a look, first we're going to remove this little safety from the brake caliper. This is in packaging just so that the brake pads don't come out. And then right here we have the through axle. There's two different size spacers. There's a big one and then a small one. The big spacer will go on the side that does not have the rotor. So what we'll do is we'll just take the entire thing apart. Take off the washers and the spacers. Feed this through. We will want to take this off before we get the wheel on, and it's best if you have somebody to help you out. If you don't have somebody to help you out, you can just flip the bike upside down. But in this case, we have somebody to help out with lifting up the bike. So once we have all the hardware off, we want just our spacers on. So just put the spacer on this side. The big one goes on the rotor side, and the small one will go on the side with the rotor. And then now we can lower the fork down. Keep lowering it down. And then boom, there we go. We have it set into place. And then we have our washer. So we'll take our little notch washer, put that on first, regular washer. And then just, we can thread the nut. And then we do that on both sides. Washer, washer, nut. And then we just want to get them even. And then once we get them snug, we will take our large wrench assortment, and then we can just tighten down the nuts. Make sure that you get these pretty tight. You just don't want the wheel to come off while you're riding. Once they're pretty tight, you can just give it a little test. Try to wobble it around. It shouldn't wobble at all. And if it's not wobbling, then you're all set. So we'll get this out of the way, get the kickstand down, and the bike is now ready to ride. Almost. Last but not least, we will be installing the battery. So let's get the battery out of the box here. In the box, we just have our battery, and the key for it is right here at the bottom. So we'll take that out. And then we can see that it is in the lock position. So what we'll do to install the battery is get the key in there, unlock it. So it just doesn't look like you have to hold it. So what we'll do is we'll make sure that the prongs line up, the connectors, and then we'll get this set on there, hold the key open, and then slide it on. And then what we want to do is make sure that, so we want to make sure we get it all slid on properly before we take it for a ride. So hold that, slide that on until it clicks. Take out the key and just give it a few hits. Wiggle it around, make sure it's not coming off. And then to test to make sure the bike works, we have our keys for the bike right up here. We can just cut those off. We can install them over here. Turn it to the on position. Click the on button. And now we have power. Now that we have the bike all assembled, ready to ride, we just want to make sure that the blinkers work. So let's turn the bike on, check our turn signals. They won't turn on, so now, so now we can see the lights are not turning on. That's just because, I guess, during shipment, these got disconnected. So we'll just reconnect them, making sure that the arrows line up. Now that we see the hazards are on, and then to turn the hazards off, we click the hazard button, left, right. So it looks like we got our connectors all connected properly and we don't need to change anything. But if we go left and the right one turns on, it's a pretty easy fix. All you gotta do is come down here to the connectors, find our orange connectors and just swap them out. So in this case, it would be this one and this one. We would just swap them out, but we don't have that problem, so we'll just put it back together. All right, now that we got everything put together, that concludes our assembly tutorial video of the Goat Power Bike's Motor Goat e-bike.